Alright, so I'm interested in basically tracking the source of an odor plume. There's been a lot of research on this in the past. People have done things such as chemotaxis, which is simply following a concentration gradient of an odor in a static, non-turbulent field. A lot of people have tried to recently kind of branch out with that. There's some new algorithms out, such as infotaxis, which was written about earlier this year, which is utilizing basically plume dynamics in order to map a probability field of a plume and to try to determine the probability that a source is at any given location. Applications of tracking the source of an odor plume are things such as chemical leaks, especially in highly controlled environments, space station, shuttles, etc. Right now, a standard system that's used is you will have a pressure regulator on one end of a pipe and a pressure valve at the other end, and you will be able to tell that there's a drop in pressure over the pipe. It doesn't tell you where in the pipe that leak is. If you have a robot that can navigate to the source of a leak, you can pinpoint where that leak is, replace a small part of the pipe instead of the whole thing, for instance. What's the difference between a plume and a diffusion gradient? An odor plume is basically driven by wind motion primarily that tends to override the diffusive forces of the molecule. We care about that because in the real world, you tend to find odor plumes, not diffusion gradients. And a lot of the work that's been done so far has been solely with diffusion gradients in idealized laboratory conditions. If you can find something that works in the real world, much more. Here's an image of a basic odor plume. Some of the properties that I am going to be using for my algorithm to track sources is this sort of breaking up of the plume. As you can see, as it goes along, there's places where there's patches of odor and there's patches of no odor. That intermittency of odor is something that is at a lower rate. You get more constant odor towards the center of the plume and towards the source of the plume. So if you're out on the edge, you might get a patch of odor once every second. Well, if you're in the middle of the plume, far away, you might get a patch of odor once every third of a second. Well, if you're right up on the source, you're going to get a constant odor stream. So by looking at those sort of relative intermittency rates, you can kind of track the source in a much more sort of dynamic way that allows you to use the properties of a turbulent odor plume to find a source, not an idealized lab condition. This is just basically an animation of what a bubble plume looks like in, this is actually a liquid animation, but they're very similar, liquid and air movement gases. So what I am doing is, my goals are to design the navigation algorithm, utilizing characteristics of turbulent plumes to track the source, maximize the abilities of the available hardware. Our sensor has a response time of about 50 milliseconds, which is give or take about 10 times faster than the response time of a silkworm moth's antenna. However, the return time can be up to about 7 seconds, which is about 10-15 times faster than the return to a baseline reading of a biological system. So how do you deal with this? You can measure one odor spike and then not measure anything else for 7 seconds. That's not very much of a worthwhile system. So I'm using data pre-processing to basically analyze local percent changes over 50 millisecond discrete period in an effort to sort of increase the sensitivity. It allows you to read basically the initial spike and the initial drop, and that's all you care about. You don't need to worry about a baseline. It also accounts for some calibration issues because it's comparing relative values over time, not from a static baseline. Then testing the algorithm on board a mobile robotic platform and analyzing the results. Haven't quite got to the analysis or data collection yet. It's starting today. Progress. The test chamber has been constructed. This gives us, we haven't had a fan yet, but it's going to be down there to create a level of turbulence. Right now, this is just to let us get baseline readings of a diffusion field, and then we will add the turbulence and model the basically interaction with the turbulent plume, so we can get sort of the difference in performance. Sensor return time issues using the transient sensor response, which is what I'm calling the localized percentages in order to solve the hardware sensitivity issues. and then algorithm development is complete, and the initial algorithm was implemented, was successfully on board the robot today. And then I have a video of the first, or one of the first, trackings of an odor plume using one of our mobile robotic platforms. As of about 11 o'clock this morning. 10 o'clock this morning. So your source is going to be right there. It's a robot. It's just reading data in from the sensor right there and making decisions about what to do. Locates the source, backs up for a second, thinks about it, wasn't sure if it was there, and decides that's where it is, and goes and tags it again. So that's where I've gotten so far. Hope to kind of fine-tune that, try to up the efficiency over the next couple days, and add some turbulence into the system. And I think that's it. I don't know if Dr. Swann, Anthony, or Perreira would like to come up and say any final words, but.
Okay, good guys.